What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Baddog back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how ownership has kind of destroyed this franchise. These are things that I've kind of mentioned in passing, but haven't really focused on it in a video. Before we get into that, I'm just going to ask everybody, if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed, please like, please subscribe. I do a lot of videos. I also do a lot of live streams, including one tonight at 10 o'clock. So in about 2 hours or so, we'll do a Giants therapy session. Hope you guys will come by. Lord knows we all need it. I need your guys' shoulder to cry on. You may need my shoulder to cry on. Row and 5, we need a lot of help. I have a couple beers. Let's drink them together. We're going to need it. Also, I have the links to my Twitter and my Instagram in the description. If you guys could follow me on Twitter and Instagram, that would be great. Just because you don't always get the notifications when I go live on YouTube or make a video. This way, if you're curious if I've done one, you'll definitely get those notifications on Twitter. They always go there without fail. And on Instagram, I usually 90% of the time post a link to the video or the live stream. So hopefully you guys will follow me. And like I said, I will follow you back. You know, I was watching a post-game video by Evan Ingram. And it got me to thinking about 2017, and it really got me to thinking about how ownership has screwed this franchise over for many years. Now, Jerry Reese had a big hand in this. I go back to 2011. I go back there a lot because we drafted Prince Amukamara. This is when it started to fall apart. And this is going to lead into the ownership's part in this disaster that we call the New York Giants these days. Drafted Prince Amukamara was not the right draft pick. The right draft pick that year was Mark Ingram. Brandon Jacobs, was nearing the end. He was starting to, the running was, the way he ran started to take a toll on his body. You're not going to last long in the NFL. Obviously, he had lost a step. It was pretty obvious. We were 30th in the league in rushing that year, maybe even 32nd. I always get the defense and the offense confused that year. One was 30th, one was 32nd. We couldn't run the ball in 2011. Ahmad Bradshaw was still good for a couple years after that, but he didn't really have a running partner. Jacobs was kind of, on the downtrend of his career at that point. Mark Ingram would have been the perfect pickup. Mark Ingram was a very good running back in this league for a very long time with the New Orleans Saints. His father obviously played here with the New York Giants, was part of the 1990 championship team, which is my favorite Giants championship team of all time. Now, I know he had some legal issues, and I don't think they had reared their ugly head back in 2011, but that seemed to be the obvious pick. His dad played here. He was one of the best running backs coming out of college, out of Alabama. I believe he won the Heisman Trophy. I'm not positive, but I think he was one of those triumphant of running backs that won the Heisman at Alabama. And he was sitting there for us to take. We went Prince Amukamara. Prince Amukamara was okay. Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. Not worth a first-round pick. Okay. 2012, we drafted David Wilson. Now, David Wilson had a lot of talent. I don't ever question the guy's talent. He was very talented. When I went to training camp, that guy moved at a different speed. I really liked David Wilson. I thought David Wilson was going to be a star. Now, he had fumbling problems, and obviously his neck injury, it was unfortunate what happened. But if we drafted Mark Ingram in 2011, we don't draft David Wilson in 2012. I don't know who we picked there, but we don't go running back. And obviously, whoever we took, perhaps they would have, I shouldn't say obviously, but perhaps whoever we would have took would have had a better NFL career than David Wilson. Like I said, it's unfortunate, but we would have never made that pick had we had a running back. 2013, Tyler Eifert was the guy that we should have drafted. And instead, we went Justin Pugh. Now, Justin Pugh was a disaster at right tackle, and he ended up being an above-average guard. He had a few good years. I'm not going to say anything bad about Justin Pugh. Justin Pugh was a good guard for us. He did well, but again, I think Tyler Eifert was the pick there. The tight end was always been a big part of our offense, and our offensive line was still pretty good back then, although it started to falter at that point. But, I felt like Tyler Eifert should have been the pick, but I'm not going to get on him for Justin Pugh. I'm not going to do that. 2014, hard to argue with Odell Beckham. I didn't like the pick. I didn't think we needed a receiver in that draft. But listen, Odell Beckham is the reason Jerry Reese had his job as long as he did, because he came in here and he killed it. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away. The guy's one of the most talented wide receivers I've ever seen. He was the most talented wide receiver in the history of the New York Giants. It's not close. He may not have been the best because he was injured and didn't play here his whole career. But there's no doubt in my mind he was the most talented, and it's not close. That guy can play. I'm not taking anything away from Odell Beckham. It just wasn't the right pick because, again, we were a bad team in 2013. You don't spend your first-round pick on a wide receiver when you start off 0-6. Then the disasters really began to happen. 2015, Eric Flowers. 2016, Eli Apple. Both complete and utter failures. Both complete and utter trash. Just disastrous picks. They did nothing but fail. here with the Giants. Now, this is where I'm going to get into ownership. Ownership began to screw up in 2015. And when I made the Ben McAdoo rant, I talked about how the Giants were going to be in this debacle for the next 5 years. They were going to be a bad team for the next 5 years. In 2016, we were 11-5. I've said this ad nauseum. We beat a lot of bad teams, and this team won a lot of those games by a touchdown or less. They were not an 11-5 team. They were a lucky team that got some plays that won some games. When we played a good team, we got embarrassed by all of them. When we lost, we got embarrassed. It was really that simple. Ownership screwed up by getting rid of Coughlin and keeping Jerry Reese. They should have either both went in 2015 or Coughlin should have stayed on when Reese spent all that money on the defense. And that's really what it should have been. At that point, they started to stagger the things, and Reese was here for the next 2 years. So it was just a really bad job. 2016, Eli Manning did not have a good season. He didn't. He had 26 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. That offense was not good. They won because of defense. Their offense was not good whatsoever. And anybody who watched that Giants team knows they had a hard time scoring points. They won because of defense. Okay, they beat Dallas 20-19. They beat Dallas 10-7. They won a lot of those games like that. They beat New Orleans, I think, 16-13 or 13-10. These are games that they won. They could not score at all in 2016. Eli Manning, listen, some Eli Manning fans are not going to like what I have to say. That's fine. I'm not knocking Eli Manning. Eli Manning was my third favorite Giant of all time behind LT and Mark Bavaro, man. Eli Manning is the greatest quarterback in the history of this franchise. He's the toughest son of a bitch I've ever seen put on a Giants uniform. And real talk, he was very tough. He's very underrated. The guy won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He's in the top 10 of every major passing category in the history of the NFL. Okay, he's done things that only a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL have done. So I'm not disrespecting Eli Manning, but after 2016, it was done. It was over. Okay, the Giants at that point should have went and listened to Ben McAdoo and tried to trade up to get Pat Mahomes. And obviously it was there because the Chiefs traded up to get him. So that was available. That's where they screwed up. That is on ownership. And that is when this team really started to take a turn for the worse. Was that right there. Because in 2017, Eli Manning, that should have been his last year. He got a contract a couple years, for 2 years after 2017. That should have never happened. It should have been Pat Mahomes in 2016, sit behind Eli Manning for a season, and probably come in at the end of the year because in 2017, he should have sat behind Eli Manning in 2017, probably come in at the end of the year because of, we were a disaster in 2017, and got his experience then. Then the Saquon Barkley pick in 2018 makes more sense because you already have your quarterback. And then in 2019, we don't draft Daniel Jones. We go Josh Allen. Now, of course, the records may have been different, so we can't really go, but that's the fallacy of the predetermined outcome. We really don't know how the draft works, but we do know that we don't take Daniel Jones in 2019. Have we taken Pat Mahomes in 2017? See, ownership of the New York Giants is loyal to a fault. That's their problem. They don't want to bend. They don't want to break. They don't want to do anything differently, man. They still think it's 1986. Well, it's not 1986, okay? I understand their loyalty to Eli Manning because of what he means to this franchise, but the fact of the matter is you can't be loyal to players at the end of their career when they're not producing like they did in the middle, in the prime of their career. So this was a big mistake, was that right there. Because Ben McAdoo wanted to move on from him, and they didn't. And then when Ben McAdoo benched him in favor of Geno Smith, then ownership really said, well, go, now we really have to make it up. Which is why Dave Gettleman, who's going to be fired at the end of this year, if he even makes it to the end of the year. Okay? I'm not defending Dave Gettleman. Okay? Dave Gettleman has missed on a ton of picks. I defended him for a couple years, and I'm not defending him anymore. He has missed on a lot of picks. It looks like he may have missed on Daniel Jones. Andrew Thomas has been disaster. I don't care if it's been 5 games. I don't care. He hasn't played good. Maybe Andrew Thomas pans out and he's great. Right now, he's not. Right now, it looks like a bad pick. Things can change in the future, but right now, that looks bad. Daniel Jones, maybe he is the guy. Maybe he's not. Right now, that looks bad. Saquon Barkley, it's unfortunate. Torn ACL, broke his high ankle sprain last year. Looks like a bad pick, right? O'Shane Xemines looks like a bad pick. Lorenzo Carter looks like a bad pick. B.J. Hill looks like a bad pick. Xavier McKinney, we don't even know what he's going to be. Looks like a bad pick. Like everything looks like a bad pick, right? But one thing I will say about Gettleman, to this day, until the day Saquon's out of here or Gettleman's out of here or both or whatever, I'm never going to put that pick on Dave Gettleman. That was ownership. Ownership made him take Saquon Barkley because they wanted to try to win for Eli Manning. Ownership screwed this up by hanging on to Eli Manning way too long. That is what happened. And I don't care what anybody says, and they can get mad at me. The Eli fanboys can get mad at me for that, but that's a fact. Eli Manning was not good in 2016 or 2017. There was no reason to extend him into 2019, and there was certainly no reason to draft Saquon Barkley. Dave Gettleman, he said he's touched by the hand of God, and my blind grandmother could have taken whatever he said. Dave Gettleman's not going to come out and go, well, ownership forced me to take him. I didn't want him. I wanted this guy. Ownership forced me to take him. Can you imagine starting a new job and throwing your bosses under the bus because they told you to do something you didn't want to do? Can you imagine throwing them under the bus? Come on, man. That's not going to happen. Also, Dave Gettleman, I don't know how much he had to do with the Daniel Jones pick. To me, that was Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur wanted Daniel Jones, and then Pat Shurmur was out of here. Again, ownership screwing up. If you're going to get rid of Pat Shurmur, you should have got rid of Dave Gettleman. Because now you've staggered the coach and the GM again, right? Because now Gettleman's going to be gone and Joe Judge is going to be here. Or they're going to fire Joe Judge after 1 year, and I'd be really ticked off if they did that because this isn't Joe Judge's fault. Joe Judge, listen, Joe Judge has been dealt a bad hand. The Giants are a bad team. And it's really not his fault. To me, I don't see things we're losing because of coaching. I don't see him making the mistakes. I really don't. I see lack of execution. I see bad penalties. And I see bad football. Pat Shurmur, he did make a lot of stupid coaching decisions. Ben McAdoo, I don't think so much he made bad coaching decisions, but the players did not respect him, and he lost the locker room, and that's why he was gone. Okay? But again, I go back to the whole Eli Manning thing. If the New England Patriots are able to let Tom Brady walk away, a guy who played in 9 Super Bowls for them and won 6 of them. The greatest quarterback in the history of football, in my opinion. Maybe not the most talented. Okay? Aaron Rodgers more talented. Russell Wilson more talented. Pat Mahomes more talented. Pat Mahomes, to me, is a rich man's Russell Wilson. I love Russell Wilson. Remember, I was doing the videos about Russell Wilson becoming a New York Giant because it didn't look like he was going to sign with Seattle? Remember those videos before he drafted Daniel Jones? I wanted Russell Wilson here in the worst way. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I freaking love that guy. He's amazing to watch. And Pat Mahomes is the same type of guy, actually with a little bit better skill set, which is ridiculous. Now, would Mahomes be in New York what he is in Kansas City? Perhaps not. But he'd be better than Daniel Jones. It would have been better than the alternative. And we would have started that rebuild back in 2017 instead of like we're doing now. And this rebuild, they're not building, okay? They're getting like it just, they can't even get the foundation right. How the hell can you build a house or build anything when you can't even get the foundation strong? We don't have a strong foundation here. Who is the leader of this team? There is no leader. Who is the leader of this team? Daniel Jones? Saquon Barkley? Darius Slayton? Golden Tate? Do we have a leader? Evan Ingram? Is it any of these guys leaders? Is Jabril Peppers, is he a leader? Got in here last year. Is he a leader? Is Kyler Fackrell, Blake Martinez, these guys that came in this year, James Bradbury, are they leaders in being here for 5 games? This is all on ownership. Ownership has screwed everything up. They held on to Reese too long. They fired Coughlin too early, in my opinion. Like I said, they should have fired them both at the same time or kept them both. You don't stagger a head coach and then get rid of him 2 years later and fire your GM and then do the same damn thing 2 years later again. It's just, they have messed up so many things, and they have had a hand in so many things. When your franchise is bad for a couple years and turns it around, okay, maybe it is the GM, maybe it is the quarterback, maybe it's this and this and that. But when your team is as bad as the New York Giants have been for the last 8 years now, because they're terrible again this year. So since 2013, this team has had a losing record every freaking year they have won. They have won their opening game once since 2009. Once. That was 2016. They have not won their opening game since. They started out 0-6 in 2013. They're 0-5 this year. Okay? That's ownership. When your team is bad for as long as it's been, that's ownership. The Knicks are as bad as long as they've been because of James Dolan. Bad ownership because you can't fire your owners. The Redskins, bad ownership. They've been a bad organization. I'm sorry. The Washington football team has been a bad franchise for many years because their ownership is terrible. This is what happens when your ownership is bad. The Mets, for years, outside of 2015, terrible, underachieving because the Wilpons are trash, right? James Dolan's terrible. Dan Snyder's terrible. Al Davis with the Raiders was a guru back in the day, But, the game passed them by. And the Raiders were really bad while that guy was in charge. And now you see the Raiders starting to come up, right? Because they don't have Al Davis. God rest his soul, is gone. And they didn't have to worry about that. But you see that. When you have ownership that is bad and doesn't understand the game of football, you're going to have losing, or any sport for that matter. Baseball, basketball, doesn't matter. When you have bad ownership, you're going to be a bad franchise. We are a bad franchise. And that has a lot, 95% of it to do with ownership. If they hire the GM, they hire the coaches, they hire all these guys, none of these guys are working. And there's no doubt in my mind they had a say in Daniel Jones. They had a say in Saquon Barkley. They've had a say in everything that Dave Gettleman has done. Now, Dave Gettleman will be the fall guy because you can't fire yourself. But, that is what it is. This all started back in 2011, but 2017 was the transition year where the Giants should have started their rebuild at that point, drafting Pat Mahomes. That's what McAdoo wanted to do. That's what should have happened. But ownership and Jerry Reese told him no. I'm not even putting that on Jerry Reese. I think ownership said no. Eli's our quarterback until Eli decides he's going to be gone. That's really what I think. I think ownership made sure that didn't happen. And that's why and then again, when McAdoo benched him, which was stupid. He shouldn't have benched Eli. There was no reason to bench Eli because Geno Smith is not a future quarterback, okay? But then they extended him because they felt bad. And then they tried to get Saquon Barkley in here because they felt like they owed Eli Manning another shot at winning. Well, it hasn't happened. Eli Manning is gone, and the New York Giants are in the same situation that they've been in for the last 7 years, which is a speed bump and a laughingstock of the NFL. Ownership has a lot to answer for, and until they sell this team or somehow give power to somebody else, bring in a young-minded GM in here, then they say, go ahead, you have all the power in the world, you have all the power to make the picks you want, right? It won't change. Will not change till ownership gives up the power and allows the GM to actually draft his own guys, because I don't think they allowed that to happen with Dave Gettleman. I really don't. Wow, 17 minutes. Sorry, guys. I guess I had a lot to get off my chest. If you watched this whole thing, God bless you. And I'll see you in a couple hours. Sorry it was so long. Till next time, guys, it's Bad Diggity Dizzle, and I'm gone. Peace!